Hey, my name is Chase Dagley, and me and my dad like to do what we call authentic travel. Think like no reservations with Anthony Bourdain. We have some simple rules like no cruises, no tours, and we like to try and avoid restaurants that have English menus to the best of our ability. So, for our next big trip this summer, we're thinking of going to the Andalusian region in Spain. So, because of that, my dad's been taking Spanish classes. And when he heard about our fieldwork assignment, he mentioned his professor as being someone with a very interesting backstory. So I have decided to interview Profesora Juni Carvajal. She's a fascinating immigrant from Honduras. She teaches Spanish to native English speakers and English to native Spanish speakers. Additionally, she has a degree in sign language. So, the first story that we'll be looking at from this interview is Junie recalling growing up in Honduras, being half deaf, and her experiences of navigating childhood, school, and everyday life.
Well, in Honduras, especially, because I'm 50 now. So, I was born like that. So, my doctor was always the same that I saw while I was living over there. But in my country, we don't know where to go. So, it's interesting because my parents always treated me like, oh, you have nothing, you can hear. The thing is that because I was doing this major, you are talking about kids that are hard of hearing, totally deaf, or like me, half deaf. And I learned, doing the courses that because I am half deaf, all the information is coming, through one ear, and it's too much for me. So I didn't know because I used to when I was a child, and even now I used to like I lost a focus when it's too much in a meeting, it's too long, and I thought it's my bad, something that I need to do. But now taking the courses that I took, I learned that it was because I was hearing from one ear, and that is exhausting for a person. It's so it was I was exhausted, after a while. Other thing, I used when I am in a room that is full, of people, like a restaurant, and somebody's laughing too hard, behind my table, behind me, or they are talking too loud. I used to be so uncomfortable, and I used to thought, oh, maybe I am too picky, and now I understood that it's not, because after a while, all that sounds for me, is hard. But because I was born in Honduras and we didn't have, a place to go to learn that language in my city or a city close to my city, my parents, they raised me like nothing is wrong. They had no idea how, to deal with what I had. They just took me to the doctors, to the, every 6 months, check my ears, and that's it. But now I learned also that I should had constant breaks, because it's too much information at once. As a child, my teacher should put me like, Julie, you need a break of 15 minutes. You need a break of 15 minutes. I never got that.
Yeah.
I was in classroom like another child with the 2 ears. And I just went recently, like I say recently because it was this year, to a doctor just to check my ear, the good one. And at the moment he saw me, I was reading about him, and I knew when I went to see him that he used to do a lot of surgeries, that kind of surgery for me. At the moment he saw me, he told me, the good ear is good. I just want to talk about the another ear, because I can open it, but I can put an implant, to you, and you can hear, in that ear. So he had the device with him. He put it back here. He started talking. For the first time, I heard with my ear.
Wow.
So I thought that I was, hearing like you hear.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't, and it was totally different.
Wow.
Totally amazing that my eyes were full of, tears. I wasn't crying, but I was like almost crying, because I was at that moment, Chase. I said, "Is how they hear when they have 2 ears. Oh my God, that is amazing. It was more clear. It was more like profound. I don't know, but it was a total cool experience.
So this story is a clear example of a personal experience narrative, which is a major folklore genre where people tell stories about their lived experiences that reflect broader cultural patterns. Like, for example, she explained that as a child, she struggled to focus in school and thought something was wrong with her personally, showing how cultural worldview shaped how she interpreted her own body. Through her lived experience, we can see the transmission of folk knowledge in the traditional narrative structure of transformation. Because she was raised in a community where disability wasn't discussed, she learned to interpret sensory overload as a personal flaw and not a physical condition. This single story helped me to better understand how much of our lives are actually shaped by cultural traditions and by what our families teach us and what our communities assume and what we learn to normalize. And her story shows that folklore lives in the body and memory. So, in the next story that Junie is going to tell, she talks about her experience of traveling back to her hometown of Honduras for the first time in 23 years.
Well, we because it is a port. We were surrounded of beaches, so many beaches, and we used to go, but not that often. Sometimes, for holidays, we used to have a lot of tourist people from other cities and they always used to say, "Oh, I wish to live here. I could go every day to the beach." No, you don't go every day to the beach. You can't. So, but that's why I think I love everything that is water, the ocean, everything, because it reminds me, when I was growing up. And before my country was very, especially my city, was very, nice, no problems, no games. So we could walk, at 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and nothing happened to you. So it was a really nice, town growing up. And I left my country 26 years ago, and I just came back to my country 3 years ago. So for some reason, because I was living a lot here, I didn't feel attached to my country because I used to be so many years here. But when I went, to my country 3 years ago after 23 without going. I remember that my friend took me to the beach. At the moment, Chase, that I put my feet on the water, I felt how I belong. I just said to myself, here is where I belong. This is where I grew up. This is, my place. So it was a very nice sensation on my body that now I am in love with my country again. Yeah.
Yeah, and so touching on that, this might be a silly question, but do you ever think about fully moving back to Honduras or
No.
no?
No, my friend asked me the same. My friend told me, "Do you see yourself again here?" And I say no, because the mentality over there is so, for me, many times is so limited. They are not. I don't like to have that mentality. The macho, the woman that has to be there for the man, and be like a maid for the man and things like that. Also, my son, he is gay, and in my country, the mentality that they have about gay people is awful. So I can, be in my country again after being here, and I lived for years in England. So I have been living in other places, and I don't see myself living over there again.
So, one of the clearest folklore elements in her narrative is sense of place, which in folklore studies refers to how landscapes and environments become culturally meaningful. And when she describes the beaches of her hometown, like the water, the ocean, and the freedom of walking safely at night, she isn't just recalling a childhood memory, but she's expressing a cultural relationship to the land, shaped by tradition, community, and shared local identity. The ocean becomes a symbol of home, safety, and belonging, functioning almost like a piece of folk geography that defines who she is. And finally, her entire narrative follows the structure of a traditional transformation story, which is another major folklore pattern. She moves from childhood memories to displacement to estrangement from her homeland and finally to a renewed sense of connection, but with the realization that she can no longer fully belong there. And through this, we can see how folklore is not just old stories, it's the living process through which people negotiate identity, home, and cultural values across time.
Well, it happens, one student, I was giving her classes. And, she was good when she started with me, but, she needed more. She was maybe 50%. So I was teaching her, past tense, imperfect, many things. And, like, I have been with her, maybe I was with her like 8 months or with her when she made a trip um, to Mexico, and she was in first class, and she is a journalist, so she had to go to Mexico for her job. And then she told me that when she was in first class in that airplane, nobody, any flight attendant, could speak Spanish. So, which is weird because if you are going to Mexico, you should have one, right? So the lady that was sitting with her, next to her, she was from Mexico and she couldn't speak English. So she was able to help her in everything. For the meal, asking all the questions that she had, translating and everything. And she told me, Judy, thanks to what you had taught me, I was able to help this woman. And I really, really felt so good. And I really want to say to you, thank you for everything that you had taught me. And at that moment, Chase, I felt so good because I think I'm helping my student, but no, I'm helping more than my student. I'm helping other people that I haven't met or I won't met. But because I'm helping them, they are able to help other people. So it's like, a beautiful path that you are building. Because it's now I help you and she's helping you, and you never know where your legacy will go. And I feel that it's a legacy that I'm, making. And that is my legacy.
So what makes this story folklore is the way it demonstrates cultural transmission, the passing of knowledge from one person to another in informal everyday settings. She wasn't just teaching grammar, she was passing down skills that would later move into a completely different community. When her student was on that flight to Mexico and no one in the airline staff spoke Spanish, the student suddenly became the cultural bridge between an English-speaking flight crew and a Spanish-speaking woman who needed help. Her story also shows that what folklorists can call the folk process, the way traditions, skills, and knowledge spread organically from person to person. She originally believed she was only helping one student, but when the student came back and told her the story, she realized her teachings had helped someone she had never met, and that person might help someone else in the future. And this is how folklore travels. It flows outward and carries through individual lives. And so by doing this fieldwork project, it's really changed the way I understand folklore. Before this, I thought folklore was just old stories or traditions from the past, but through this interview, I realized that folklore is alive, and it lives in people's voices and the lessons they've learned and what they choose to pass on, and even in things they never realized were cultural. And it made me appreciate how powerful everyday storytelling can be, not just for preserving culture, but for understanding people on a deeper level. So, thank you.